Hello everyone, this is Erik, the Asian movie enthusiast, and this is my review of The Yellow Sea, a Korean thriller from 2010 that was directed by Na Hong-jin. Now, I was very interested to sit down and rewatch this movie, because I've always considered it to be this director's weakest film, behind The Chaser and The Wailing, of course. Still a good film, I considered it, but I did not consider it to be in the same league as those other two. So Gunam is a cab driver in Yanji City in China who leads a fairly pitiful life. His wife went to Korea to earn some money 6 months ago, but he hasn't heard from her since. He plays mahjong to make some extra cash, but he has racked up some serious debt. His life only becomes more complicated when he meets a gangster named Myun-ga and receives a proposal to turn his life around by repaying his debt and reuniting with his wife. But to do this, he must murder someone. So he crosses the Yellow Sea and arrives in Seoul to prepare for his deed. But complications arise, and the gangster attempts to tie up loose ends. So the introductory text of the film is kind of important here. The region where North Korea, China, and Russia meet is known as Yanbian Korean Autonomous Prefecture. About 800,000 Korean Chinese, known as Joseonjuk, reside there, and over 50% of the Joseonjuk population rely on either illegal activity or legally living and working in South Korea in order to survive. So this kind of touches upon their lifestyle in these people, along with the thriller elements. So when this movie originally came out, it had the interesting dynamic of having the same actors switch roles for two different films that were directed by the same director. So Na Hong-jin previously directed The Chaser from 2008, where Kim Yoon-seok played the protagonist and Ha Ji-won played the criminal. Well, in The Yellow Sea from 2010, Ha Jung-woo plays the protagonist and Kim Yoon-seok plays the criminal. It's like swapped roles with the same director. Pretty interesting situation that Hong Kong also attempted during the very same time. If you remember, in 2008, Dante Lam directed The Beast Stalker, where Nicholas Che plays the protagonist and Nick Chung played a criminal. Well, in The Stool Pigeon, Dante Lam directed, Nick Chung plays the protagonist and Nicholas Che played the criminal. So I've always found that parallel between these Korean and Hong Kong productions to be very, very interesting. And they're all these films are worth checking out. So in any case, if you've seen The Chaser already, you know that the acting in The Yellow Sea is going to be solid. These guys can bring it, and Na Hong-jin is very talented at directing actors. And then there are a few other recognizable faces that show up in this that I will not spoil. So I'm not going to tell you who they are, but you'll notice them. Now, there is one main reason why I've always considered The Yellow Sea to be Na Hong-jin's third best movie, and that is the pacing. The first few times I saw this, I found the opening hour to be a little bit too slow. Remember, the total runtime here is like 2 hours and 20 minutes. And I always felt that the pacing suffered a bit partially because of that. However, during my most recent viewing a few days ago, that problem mostly disappeared because I appreciated the setup a little bit more this time around. So for example, I did like the protagonist's ritualistic methods, like in terms of practicing how he's going to attack and kill his target. And you do have to pay attention to kind of the details here, because the director likes to reference things through visuals instead of explaining things using verbal exposition by the characters. So a lot of the early scenes with our protagonist, like staking out his potential target, are more interesting than you might expect, and I appreciated them more during this viewing. Also, I like the environments and the imagery that are showcased early and often. I mean, we get shots of both urban and rural areas during the chilly winter months. There are quite a few scenes that take place at night. People are gambling, they're smoking cigarettes, they're bundled up in coats to protect themselves from the cold weather. You know, the boat across the sea is very grungy and dirty. This film has like a rough vibe to it that I really like. It complements the theme of desperation for our main character. The violence, of course, gets a bit bloody at times. Choice of weapons here are knives, hatchets, and even large animal bones, which is like some of the highlight moments are with those. The chase scenes are very good, including a cop chase near the 1 hour mark that kind of kicks off the thriller elements. And the body count is actually surprisingly high for a film of this kind. I would describe these sequences as like one versus many chases instead of the typical one versus many fights that we see in, Hong Kong action films and stuff like that. Like, it's definitely entertaining stuff because our protagonist needs to, like, outrun and fight off at the same time hordes of cops and criminals throughout basically the whole second half of the film. There are some very good vehicle collision scenes and destruction as well. So it's all very well staged and fun to watch. Some of the fighting does get a little bit unrealistic in terms of how much abuse a person can take. We see some of that in The Chaser too, right? As well as the ability for people to escape many pursuers. Because there'll be like 20, 30 people chasing after him, and they gotta like fight him off and escape. But it's fun to watch. So Na Hong-jin is one of the best contemporary Korean filmmakers. A lot of people consider him to be a master already, even though he's only been around for like 13 years now. And he still has only directed 3 films. So if you're even remotely interested in Korean cinema, you need to watch all of them, including The Yellow Sea. So I think after this recent viewing, I would put The Yellow Sea in the same stratosphere as The Chaser and The Wailing. I don't think I like it quite as much. It's just a tad below those, but it's up there. It continues to grow on me as I rewatch it. It is currently available streaming as well as on physical media. Now, with some releases of Korean films, there's confusion regarding cuts. So we got at least 3 different cuts to this film. You have the director's cut version, which is 2 hours and 20 minutes long. And I bought, I think it was the Hong Kong Blu-ray of that to get that. Then you have the original version that was shown in Korean cinemas when it originally released, and that's like 2 hours and 36 minutes long. That's the longest version. But I don't think it's been made available anywhere for home viewing, at least English-friendly viewing. So that's not even an option, apparently. And then there's the United States cut. That's only 2 hours and 16 minutes long, so it's 4 minutes shorter than the director's cut. And I'm not sure what it cut out. I've heard it cut out some of the violence, which is stupid, because, come on, you got to leave that in there. So if you want to watch this film, I say seek out the director's cut version, which is 2 hours and 20 minutes long. If you have to settle for the American version, that's a little bit shorter, you're probably fine with it. You know what I mean? You're going to miss some of the violence maybe, but I'm sure it'll be fine to watch. So yes, that's to sort all that nonsense out. But yes, I recommend this one quite strongly. And as always, I will see you next time.